The thing had 6 legs, stood taller than a buffalo, and had a maw full of curved teeth that looked more like ivory fishhooks than anything biological. Its fur was coarse and black, interrupted by jagged plates of bone-colored armor that ran down its spine like a serrated ridge. Every movement it made was tight, coiled, as if it were always half a second from lunging. When it exhaled, it sounded like a steam valve hissing open. Dr. Larek, the visiting xenoveterinarian from the Eker Dominion, pressed his back against the reinforced wall of the observation chamber. His upper eyes blinked rapidly while his lower ones remained locked on the creature pacing inside the enclosure. "Absolutely not," Larek said, voice sharp with alarm. "That is a Class 7 apex predator, and it is exhibiting signs of acute territorial aggression. You keep that thing sedated or behind a blast wall." "His name's Munch," said Lucas Aldrin, crouched near the edge of the transparent barrier. "And he's not aggressive. He's just anxious." Lucas wore a gray jumpsuit stained with dried blood and something green that had congealed in streaks across his sleeves. His left forearm was bandaged and stiff. He hadn't recovered full movement since the incident on Garuda Station, and yet he moved with the calm of someone surrounded by house cats rather than what Larek had just classified as a planetary-level threat. "Anxious," Larek gaped. "It crushed a steel feeding bin this morning. With its face." Lucas nodded. "Yeah, he hates synthetic meat. Makes his jaw twitch. We switched him back to raw protein packs, and he's been a lot calmer." From inside the enclosure, Munch huffed at the sound of Lucas's voice and ambled closer, pressing his massive head against the barrier. The glass creaked. Lucas raised a hand and tapped the surface once. Munch's eyes, dark, wide, and strangely soulful, blinked. "You're anthropomorphizing," Larek snapped. "That's not a pet. That's a biological weapon." Lucas stood. "You want to see a real biological weapon? Try a toddler with a stomach virus. This guy just needs a vet who isn't afraid of his teeth." Larek's head tilted, the gesture sharp and skeptical. "I am not afraid. I'm being rational. And I refuse to touch that thing until the Dominion sends a containment team." Lucas sighed. "Then I guess it's lucky I know someone who will." The human veterinary clinic aboard Station Valera 7 wasn't exactly cutting edge. It smelled faintly of antiseptic and burnt toast, and the waiting room was half filled with a trio of snoring greyhounds and what looked like a floating jellyfish suffering from a cold. Behind the counter, a woman with red-framed glasses and a coffee stain on her lab coat was typing with one hand and scratching behind the ears of a whimpering feline with the other. "Sylvie," Lucas said as he entered, "I need a favor. And before you say no, I brought coffee." Sylvie Granger looked up and narrowed her eyes. "You only bring coffee when it's something dumb or potentially illegal." Lucas set the cup down. "It's neither." "Well, not technically. I have a patient. Big. Kind of misunderstood. Also possibly illegal in 2 systems, but that's not important. Lucas, I'm still treating your last favor. The one that bit clean through a titanium gurney. He was scared, and he only bit the one gurney." She sighed, then stood and tossed the coffee back in one gulp. "What is it this time?" "Munch." Sylvie froze. "You brought Munch here?" No, he's in a secure pen. Mostly. Look, he's got a wound on his shoulder that's not healing right, and the Dominion vet won't go near him without a tranquilizer cannon. I need someone who actually knows what they're doing." "You mean someone who isn't terrified?" Lucas shrugged. "Semantics." The secure holding area was technically outside the station's public perimeter. It was where the more controversial fauna were processed creatures that didn't fit neatly into anyone's definition of safe or sensible. Sylvie adjusted her gloves as they approached the pen. "You're absolutely sure he won't attack?" Lucas nodded. "He trusts me." Inside, Munch paced restlessly. The wound on his shoulder was seeping again, a jagged gash lined with crusted blood and bruised tissue. Sylvie approached the pen slowly, her eyes scanning every muscle twitch. "Okay, big guy," she murmured. "Let's keep this civil." Lucas tapped the access panel. The inner gate hissed open and Munch turned, nostrils flaring. He saw Lucas, then Sylvie, and let out a low rumble. "Ha," Sylvie said. That almost sounded like a greeting. Lucas stepped in, palms up. "Hey, buddy. Brought someone to help." Munch dropped to his belly, the massive bulk of him flattening against the floor. Sylvie stared. He's submission posturing, she muttered. That's not behavior I'd expect from a Class 7 anything. Lucas crouched beside Munch's head and scratched behind the ridge of bone along his jaw. Told you. Gentle giant. Sylvie approached slowly, then knelt beside the wound. Her hands moved deftly, inspecting the edges. This isn't healing because something's still in there, she said. Metal shard. Probably a fragment from that transport wreck you pulled him from. Lucas winced. Can you remove it? Yeah, but I'll need at least 2 assistants and a steady hand from you. If he flinches, I could lacerate a tendon. Lucas nodded. He won't flinch. The procedure took 47 minutes. Munch didn't flinch. He grunted once. When the metal fragment was pulled free, a piece of shrapnel, the size of a thumb, then let his massive head fall into Lucas's lap. Sylvie wrapped the wound, injected antibiotics, and stepped back, sweat beading her forehead. Well, she said, he's not so bad. Lucas smiled. Told you. From the entrance. Larek watched with a mixture of horror and confusion. This is a violation of every xenobiological protocol I know, he said. Sylvie wiped her hands. So is giving a lion a belly rub. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. The next week, Munch ate 3 protein packs a day, allowed Sylvie to change his bandages, and began responding to voice commands. He rolled over when asked, growled softly when he needed food, and butted his head against Lucas's chest whenever he entered the room. Larek remained unconvinced. He will revert, he told Lucas. These creatures do not form bonds. They simulate them. Temporary displays for survival. Lucas didn't argue. He just kept showing up, kept training, kept treating. Then, one morning, alarms blared across the station. A containment breach. South corridor. Unauthorized biological release. Lucas was half-dressed when the message came through. He sprinted, boots thudding through the dim-lit hallways, and reached the holding area just as a secondary door blew open. From the shadows emerged something twice Munch's size, a creature of the same species, but leaner, more angular, and very much not a gentle giant. It locked eyes with Lucas and lunged. Lucas dove, shoulder slamming into the floor. Pain shot up his arm, blinding hot. He rolled, gasping, and tried to rise, but his leg twisted under him. Broken. He screamed. The creature snarled and charged again, and then Munch was there. He hit the other beast from the side, jaws snapping. The 2 titans crashed into the wall, claws tearing, roars echoing through the chamber. Lucas crawled backward, dragging his useless leg. Blood soaked through his pants. He couldn't breathe. Sylvie arrived seconds later. Lucas! My leg! He gasped. I think it's broken. Stay back, the other one, I see it, she said, already pulling a tranq rifle from the emergency locker. Munch and the intruder slammed into a crate of medical supplies. Syringes scattered. The intruder snapped, aiming for Munch's throat. Sylvie fired. Once. Twice. The beast staggered, then collapsed. Munch stood over it, chest heaving, then turned and limped to Lucas. Lucas looked up at him, pain blurring his vision. You're okay, he murmured. You did good, big guy. Munch whined, crouched, and nudged Lucas's hand gently with his nose. Larek arrived minutes later, flanked by security. He protected him, Sylvie said. He fought off the other one. Didn't even hesitate. Larek looked from the unconscious creature to the bloodied human to Munch, who now lay beside Lucas like a loyal hound. I will revise my classification, Larek said at last. Sylvie nodded. Good. Because this apex predator? He's a gentle giant. Lucas passed out before he could say anything else. 3 days after the breach, Sylvie stood at the edge of the temporary infirmary they'd rigged inside Hangar Base 6. The regular medbay was still undergoing sterilization after the incident, a word the Dominion insisted on using instead of near-fatal encounter with a genetically engineered apex beast. It sounded more palatable in the reports. Munch lay sedated on a reinforced mat, his side rising and falling under the soft whir of a cooling unit. A patch of his neck had been shaved to administer fluids, and a new bandage wrapped his front leg where a deep bite had narrowly missed the tendon. Sylvie adjusted the drip rate and checked his vitals on the portable monitor. "Still stable," she muttered. "Good boy." Across from her, Lucas sat propped against the bulkhead, his leg elevated and encased in a pneumatic brace. His face was pale and his shirt was damp against his back, but he hadn't stopped watching Munch since they brought him in. "You need to lie back," she said without turning. "I'm fine." "You're not. Your femur was shattered in 3 places. You're on enough painkillers to tranquilize a mid-sized cargo loader." "I'm still fine." She glanced over. "You're sweating through your shirt and your pupils are 2 different sizes." Lucas blinked slowly. "That's probably just the lighting." Sylvie stood, crossed the space, and knelt beside him. "How's your left hand?" He wiggled his fingers. "Tingly. That's nerve trauma from the fall. And that's not good. You should have been in a cast, not dragged across the station behind a gurney asking if your big guy was okay." Lucas shifted slightly. "Munch got her protecting me. I'm not about to nap while he's hooked to machines." Sylvie didn't answer right away. She peeled back the edge of his brace and frowned at the swelling. "You're going to need surgery. Maybe 2 rounds. And physio. I've had worse." She gave him a long look. "No, Lucas, you haven't." A low, grating voice broke in from the bay entrance. "You are both in violation of no fewer than 9 Dominion regulations." Neither of them turned. "I'm charting your violations," continued Larek, "in order of absurdity." Lucas waved vaguely in the air. "Put compassion at the top." Larek approached stiffly. The Dominion medic uniform was newly pressed, as if he'd changed outfits just to walk into a hangar of blood, fur, and chaos. His 4 eyes shifted between Lucas and the sleeping beast. "I reviewed the security footage," he said. "The creature did shield you, and it subdued its own kind without lethal force. That was unexpected." Sylvie didn't look up from her scan. "You sound disappointed." "I am. Adjusting my parameters." Lucas chuckled under his breath. "Still calling him the creature, huh?" Larek's lower eyes narrowed. "Naming implies ownership. This is a Class 7 entity with no documented origin species. We should be discussing containment protocols, not pet names." "He's not contained," Lucas said. "He's cared for." Larek's mandibles clicked together once. "I'm not here to argue semantics. I'm here to gather data. The Dominion Council has requested a formal assessment of the incident. They are particularly interested in the behavioral anomaly displayed during the confrontation." Sylvie raised an eyebrow. "You mean the part where the uncontrollable monster acted like a trained guardian?" "Exactly. This contradicts previous Dominion findings. The last recorded encounter with one of these creatures resulted in the loss of an entire survey team on the Los 9. Lucas shifted, grimacing. "Maybe the team didn't bother to treat it like something worth saving. Or maybe your sample is defective." Sylvie stood and pointed a scalpel at Larek, not threateningly, more like an accusatory wand. "He's not a sample. He's recovering. And if you're here to poke, prod, or jab at him while he's unconscious, you can leave." Larek blinked all 4 eyes slowly. "I will not interfere. I only wish to observe." Sylvie didn't move the scalpel. "No scans. No tissue collection. No neural probes." "Agreed." He folded his arms. "But I am authorized to ask questions." Lucas leaned his head back against the bulkhead. "You're going to do it anyway. Did you perform any conditioning, physical or chemical, to elicit loyalty from the specimen?" "No," Sylvie said. "He bonded. Same way dogs do. With time, trust, and consistent care." Larek's antennae twitched. Canine behavior? In a species with no shared evolutionary traits? Lucas closed his eyes. "Maybe trust isn't species-specific." Larek turned to him. "And you? You've had physical contact with it since the initial rescue?" Lucas nodded. "Daily? More or less. Even during feeding? Especially then. He hates being watched while he eats. Makes him nervous. And yet he did not retaliate when injured?" Lucas opened one eye. Would you attack someone who brought you warm meals and scratched behind your ears? Larek looked utterly nonplussed. That depends how itchy my ears were. Sylvie snorted. Lucas grinned faintly. Look, she said, if you want to understand him, start with the basics. He wasn't treated like a threat. He was treated like someone who mattered. Larek tilted his head. You attribute emotional intelligence to a biological anomaly. That is dangerous. So is assuming everything you don't understand is dangerous, Sylvie replied. You see violent potential. We see emotional response. Before Larek could answer, Munch stirred. A long, low exhale rolled from his throat and one eye cracked open. He blinked sluggishly, sniffed the air, and then focused on Lucas. Lucas raised a hand. Hey, buddy. Munch groaned softly and tried to lift his head, but his limbs trembled. Sylvie stepped forward. Nope. Stay down. You've got at least 3 fractured ribs and a torn shoulder ligament. You moved too fast, that line tears, and we're doing this all over again. Munch blinked again and let his head drop gently. Larek was watching intently, unmoving. That's not simulation, Sylvie said. That's recognition. Larek's upper eyes narrowed. He responded to the voice. Lucas chuckled. You talk to anyone every day for 3 months, they're gonna pick up on your tone. Larek remained silent for a long moment. Then, the Dominion Council has issued a temporary delay on extraction. They wish to see how this bond develops. Sylvie looked surprised. Wait, they're not taking him. Not yet. They want data. You're the data. Lucas exhaled through his nose. So now we're the experiment. Call it what you like. But for now, the creature remains under your care. I will submit daily reports. He turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. You may continue calling it Munch if it improves compliance rates. After he left, Sylvie sat down beside Lucas with a sigh. Well, that's something. Lucas nodded. Yeah, but I don't trust it. Neither do I. But it buys us time. Munch let out a low rumble, almost like a snore. Sylvie stood and dimmed the overhead lights. Get some rest, she said. He won't like waking up alone. Lucas laid back, his eyes drifting closed. Neither would I. Outside, the station lights dimmed to evening cycle. Inside the hangar, the quiet hum of machines continued, steady and soft. And for the first time in days, nothing was trying to kill anyone. By the 5th day, the swelling in Lucas's leg had gone down enough for the brace to be replaced with a molded support shell. He still couldn't put weight on it, but at least he could maneuver with the crutches Sylvie had printed overnight, ugly things made of reinforced polymer and etched with someone's attempt at a joke in 3 languages. He hadn't asked who. The hangar had returned to a semblance of order. The broken crates had been cleared. The walls were still scuffed, but the Dominion engineers had patched the worst of the damage. Munch remained in the recovery pen, mostly asleep, but alert enough to lift his head whenever someone new entered. He hadn't growled since the incident, and he no longer flinched at the hiss of doors opening. That, Sylvie said, was progress. Lucas leaned against the entry rail, watching as she adjusted the external stim unit attached to Munch's shoulder. The creature twitched once, but didn't protest. His eyes stayed on Lucas, slow and tired but calm. You're not supposed to be upright this long, Sylvie said without glancing back. I'm not upright. I'm leaning. That's different. Your pain monitor says otherwise. It's exaggerating. Your monitor doesn't exaggerate. You do. Lucas exhaled through his nose and shifted his weight slightly. He's eating more. Triple portions. I'm adjusting his intake slowly. No reaction to the new protein blend, either. That's good. Sylvie wiped her gloves on a cloth and finally looked up. His fever broke this morning. Fluids are holding. I'd say he's past the worst of it. Lucas nodded, then tapped the rail with the end of one crutch. He twitching in his sleep? Muscle memory. Likely processing the fight. Might be reflexive tension. I've been logging the frequency. He dreaming. Sylvie's brow lifted. Lucas. I'm not trying to anthropomorphize. Yes, you are. I'm just wondering. She relented with a small shrug. His neural scans show activity spikes during rest. Could be dreams. Could be something else. We don't know how his species processes trauma. Lucas leaned forward slightly. He hasn't made a sound since the other one was taken. Would you? They were quiet for a moment. Munch's breathing filled the space, steady but shallow. You think he knew the other one? Lucas asked. I don't know. They could have been siblings, rivals, strangers. It's hard to tell when your only data is blood and bite patterns. Still fought like he meant it. Sylvie reattached the stim unit and stood. That's what bothers me. Lucas looked at her. What do you mean? His restraint. He had the other one pinned twice. Could have gone for the throat. Didn't. Maybe he didn't want to. Or maybe he was trained not to. Lucas straightened slightly. You're saying someone else got to him first? I'm saying he knew exactly how to stop without killing. That kind of control doesn't come from instinct alone. Lucas stared at Munch for a long time. So he had a handler before? Possibly. Maybe more than one. Then why was he in that wreck? Sylvie tugged off her gloves and tossed them into the bin. That's not a question I can answer. They both turned as the hangar doors slid open. Larek entered alone, holding a Dominion data tablet in one clawed hand. His gait was slower than usual, more deliberate. No entourage, no medical crew. Lucas arched a brow. No clipboard brigade today? I requested privacy. Larek approached the enclosure, stopping a meter from the edge. I've completed my report. Sylvie folded her arms. And the council has reviewed the footage, your notes, and my own observations. They've reached a conclusion. Lucas tensed. What kind of conclusion? Larek's lower eyes blinked out of sync. The creature Munch will not be extracted. Lucas blinked. Wait, really? He will remain under your care, officially classified as a rehabilitation subject, pending long-term behavioral assessment. Sylvie stepped forward. You're serious? I am authorized to deliver a formal designation. Larek held up the tablet and tapped the screen. Effective immediately, the Dominion relinquishes restrictive custody. The creature is to be treated as an autonomous life form with protected status. Lucas let out a breath. So he's safe. Larek nodded once. With conditions. Sylvie's arms dropped. Of course there are. You will submit weekly updates. Any deviation in behavior must be logged within 24 hours. And he hesitated, a Dominion observer will be stationed on site. Lucas frowned. Observer? You. No. I requested reassignment. Sylvie's eyes narrowed. Why? Larek looked at her, then at Munch. Because I was wrong. Lucas tilted his head. You're not the type to admit that lightly. I misjudged your methods. Your instincts. I believed your emotional investment clouded your judgment, but it appears to have preserved a life we would have discarded. Sylvie opened her mouth, then closed it again. Lucas leaned his crutches against the rail and stepped forward slowly. He's not just a specimen. He's someone. I don't know how else to explain it. You don't have to. Larek handed the tablet to Sylvie. The Dominion is not known for humility. I will take what I've learned here and attempt to improve that. She accepted the tablet, still watching him with cautious curiosity. What will they assign you to? Something less volatile. Perhaps phytopathology. Lucas tilted his head. You? Studying alien mold? Larek's mandibles spread in what might have been the closest he'd come to a grin. Mold doesn't bite. He turned to leave, then paused. Take care of him. Lucas nodded. Always. After Larek disappeared through the doors, the hangar felt unusually quiet. Sylvie glanced at the tablet. We're going to need a bigger food budget. Lucas stepped closer to the pen. We'll figure it out. Munch stirred again, eyes flickering open. He shifted, testing the weight on his injured leg, then slowly pushed himself upright. He didn't rise fully, just enough to press his head once, gently, against the wall nearest Lucas. Lucas reached over and laid a hand lightly between the creature's eyes. I think he knows. Sylvie snorted. Of course he does. He's not just someone. He's observant. Lucas smiled faintly. You think he'll ever be able to go back to the wild? She shook her head. He doesn't need to. He's got a new one. They stood there for a while, neither speaking. Munch's breathing was even again, the tension in his limbs gone. Outside, the station lights flickered into the next cycle. It was late, but not quite night. Somewhere, someone was starting a shift, another was ending one. The galaxy spun on, chaotic and endless. But inside the hangar, a human leaned against the railing beside a creature once labeled a monster. And in the stillness, there was something remarkably ordinary about it. No alarms, no crises. Just the quiet weight of healing and the strange, stubborn peace that comes from refusing to fear what you choose to understand.